Well, howdy, folks. Tonight, we're back with another episode of the Schlockaholics Classic Cutz. We're going to be discussing Motel Hell at some point here, a tale of cannibalism, potential sister wives, and old man fetishes.
I was going to say cradle robbing.
Yeah, old Rory Calhoun has no shame. Let's just say that much. No, he's a fine gentleman and a great actor.
Yep.
So before we get into that, though, we're just going to kind of do some meandering. That's the fun of these things, sort of catching up, talking some shit, seeing what we've been watching lately, all that stuff. This does sort of take the place of our weekly Schlockaholics Schlock Talk sessions. So we're going to go ahead and fire out like we did last time. We're going to do the random recommendations. We'll do, one thing that we've watched recently that we highly recommend, and then something we're looking forward to watching. So I guess we'll start out with you, Cody. What you been up to, man? You get anything watched? It doesn't necessarily have to be schlock. It can be anything.
Well, I just hope when you mention sister wives, there's no pissing on any sister wives' graves.
Oh, graves will be pissed on. I assure you. I'll make them certain about that. I got about all boys. They're gonna have to go somewhere eventually.
Right. I got back into watching the Fargo TV series. I forgot I didn't watch season 3, which I watched, and not bad, not my favorite. And season 4 just started, so that's pretty much. I think it's the only thing I've watched. Just got caught up on the Fargo TV series. I like it. If nobody's seen it, it's pretty good. Each season isn't compared to the other one, so if you don't like one, you might like the next one. They're all based on true stories, and it's worth a watch.
Yeah, man, I really like Fargo a lot, and I've heard good things about the show. Recently on Facebook, I proposed the idea of a horror film that is entirely cast with people that have that rural, like, Minnesota accent that they have in Fargo. I think that would be fucking hilarious. So I'm sorry I don't have any feedback on the show, as I've not seen it, but I think that this idea for the Fargo accent horror film, there's some mileage there. So feel free to have it. I'm not.
I was going to say I had this idea for a crime series set in mine Jonathan's hometown, because if you were to go to Syracuse, lots of people there sound like they're from the. It's like, I mean, people from Syracuse sound like a mix of Upper Midwest and Canadian.
Yeah, that happens the closer you get to the border. I used to have a real thick Canadian. Accents are a funny thing, man. They go away in time.
I mean, I used to sound a lot more upstate, sound a lot more like an upstate New Yorker when I was a kid. Like, I mean, my dad gives me grief about it to this day, like me saying water is water.
Right. It's a thing, man. I used to get teased about the hoser accent when I was a little kid. And then just over the years, it just kind of morphed into, I don't know, whatever fucking, like, arcade burnout Ninja Turtles thing I got going on now, but living out here on the fucking West Coast. I'm happy with it, Have you guys seen this Fargo show? Do you hear tell what Cody's talking about over there?
I've only seen the movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of it.
I mean, as far as movies, if someone ends up in a wood chipper, Fargo's pretty high up the list.
Yeah, I would say Fargo and Rumble in the Bronx as far as
yeah. He goes through the wood chipper, ends up in some fucking hefty bags, if I remember right. And that thing, holy shit, that might be top of the list actually. And then I would put Tucker and Dale versus Evil right below Fargo.
Yes,
that's where someone puts themselves into a wood chipper, which you don't see often. What about you? I think you guys both answered that in tandem. Yeah, I've not seen it either, Cody, but it's on the list. What is that streaming on? Where do we go about watching that thing?
Hulu. It's on Hulu, I think.
Yeah, it's on Hulu.
There we go. So that's your recommendation for the watch list of the week. Hey, you got one that's like on your upcoming watch list that you're looking forward to checking out?
Nicolas Cage's new movie is getting a wide release this Friday. Oh my God, Dream. Well, I can't remember what it's called.
I know Dream.
I was thinking it was Dreamscape, but I know that's not it.
No, that's
But
a
it's
Dennis Quaid movie.
yeah, I know it's
Good one
Nicolas
too.
Cage's A24 movie where he's like a professor and he keeps popping up in people's dreams.
Dream
I'm
Scenario.
really, that's it.
You talked about that last week, and it piqued my interest like crazy. I don't know how I forgot
Yeah.
about that until you mentioned it
getting-
again right now.
Yeah, it's getting a wide theatrical release this weekend, so I'd really like to try to knock that one out.
Oh, we got country up in this, Hizzy. What's up, buddy? Motel Hell, Ma and Pa Farmer if they were cannibals. That's accurate. And he hasn't seen Fargo, the movie, or the show. I highly recommend you check out Fargo at some point. I don't know what do you put it in the category of? Is it sort of like in there with like Usual Suspects and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and those movies where it's like a chain of events that just progressively get out of fucking hand the whole time?
Kind of like they're all very, very like too stranger than fiction kind of thing. So they always preface each episode, this is based on true events. The names were changed to protect the people still alive, the people that died. The story was told exactly as it happened. So it's just like small town craziness. Like the first one, Billy Bob's like a killer. I don't remember who the main character is in season 2. Season 3 takes place like in 1950s Chicago, and Chris Rock's like a rival.
So they're
mob
doing
boss.
like a whole American Horror Story thing where
Kind
each
of.
season's like a different story or some shit. I've never watched American Horror Story, but that's what I gathered from it.
Yeah, like none of them, as far as I remember, nothing's ever connected, and they all take place like different decades, stuff like that. But what's nice about it is if you didn't necessarily like one season because of an actor or the story, it's worth it to give the next season a shot. Same True Detective, I think, did the same thing.
Does it still? Because that went in a bit different direction. Because I haven't seen the show, but I was describing the movie where it's kind of like in the vein of those other sort of crime films, I guess. That it's like various characters and chains of events that get out of control until something nuts happens or whatever.
Yeah,
Fargo, I feel like has I guess Usual Suspects and Lock, Stock both have like comedic elements to them too. They're crime comedies, is I guess what I would say. I don't know what genre you would really file Fargo into other than that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of has little pieces of everything, but it's definitely like the crime stuff with like the zany, off the wall, small town characters.
Yeah, I'd say it's
like Northern Exposure with murder. What were you going to say for us?
I would classify Fargo as crime and comedy.
Yeah. It's a hard line to ride, but Fargo does it pretty expertly, I think. So if get out there and watch that country. It's a comedy, yeah. I'm signing off on that right now. That's a trademark Schlockaholics. I think that's a fucking a good. Maybe it already exists, but we're gonna claim credit for it right now.
Put it on a t-shirt.
What about you, Jonathan? You got a recommendation from the watch list and one from your upcoming list?
Last time I talked about watching Bathtub Shark Attack, I have since watched it, and I highly recommend that one. It comes to DVD, I believe, in January. She told me it's getting a wider release, so I do recommend that.
I picked up a campaign one, so I'm looking forward to getting the physical copy for that.
Yeah, if you're into shot and video stuff, you really like it.
Yeah, I've heard good things, man. Lots of people I trust their opinions of saying its praises, and the people that made it seem pretty chill.
Yeah. Upcoming one, I'm gonna do a review for I Slay on Christmas, which is an anthology film. So I'll be watching that soon. I'm looking forward to seeing what that's all about.
Yeah, Phil Herman, right?
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with him or some anthology action, especially during the holidays. I feel like it just fits really well. I kind of stepped on you there with Bathtub Shark Attack, though. Overall, what are your impressions of it? A pretty fun little SOB style like puppet movie, or is there...
Yeah, it wasn't what I was expecting, which is what I really liked about it. I kind of went in expecting, a shark attacking people in a bathtub, but there was much more to it than that. I don't want to spoil. If you see my review, it's full of spoilers, so I don't recommend it if you don't want it spoiled. But it was much more than that. It was really funny, gory. If you've seen her other movie, Spirit Animal, it's much like that one, but even more crazy than that. Much more gory than that one.
great things about that as well. Shout out to our boy Matt Skinner, that crazy Canuck up there. That's it brings it full circle to the Canadian thing right there too. That guy is a massive supporter of those people, him and his kid. Massive supporter of indie movies in general, but man, did he went nuts for the bathtub shark attack. That's mainly the reason why I'm aware of it, is because of that dude. So definitely looking forward to checking it out. What's that one like? Like, what's the whole gimmick there?
You go ahead, Jonathan.
Oh, about bathtub shark attack?
Spirit animal.
Oh, spirit animal is the scratch and sniff card. That's the gimmick of the movie, where every time there's a number on screen, you scratch it, like it's shit, weed, a couple other things.
Well,
you're asking what it's about?
Yeah. I mean, I'm into that already, but yeah.
Yeah, I believe all the DVDs come with the card too.
That's just good stuff. Schlockaholics approved. More scratch and sniff needs to be involved in this shit, I think. It would add to some of these films. What about you, Forrest? You got one off the recent watch list and one off of the upcoming watch list that you want to throw out there?
Let's see. I've been watching quite a bit of stuff. I mean, I've been going to the movies a lot. I went to the movies a lot this past weekend. And then also, you know, also a little bit of TV, also a little bit of show watching too. Let's see.
Throw a few of them out there. You don't get to join us very often.
Okay, sure. I mean, on the TV end of things, I've been watching Scott Pilgrim Takes Off on Netflix. It is an anime of Brian Lee O'Malley's Scott Pilgrim, which it has the entire like all the voice actor. It's the entire It's voiced by the entire cast of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, but the animation style is in the style of the comic book that it was adapted, that the movie was based on.
Right.
And it features a lot, and the plot is pretty much the same as the movie, both the comic and the movie. But unlike the movie, it has a lot more stuff from the comic. So it definitely makes it stand out. And there's a lot more new music to it too. A lot of new music too. So it makes it stand. So it's not like you're just. It definitely feels like its own unique. It's definitely its own unique experience from both the comic book and the movie.
Right. I know Brandon's been watching it, and he was singing its praises too. I tried to get into Scott Pilgrim, man, but I started with the comics. Like, that seemed the most logical place to start. And I like all the punk rock references and the video game references and the love that they showed that. Scott was just such an insufferable douche to me as a character that I just couldn't like relate to the comic or anything like that. But from what I understand, the new series is basically about them rescuing him, right? So he's kind of out of the picture, and it's about the other characters, which does intrigue me because I did like them when I was testing out the comics. So.
Yep. So that's on the TV end of things. Movie end of things. Again, I've been going to the movies. I went to the movies a lot over the weekend.
You're always going to the movies for us.
Yeah.
You're the most movie watching son bitch I know, I think.
I mean, I probably watch more movies at the theater than I do at home.
You watch more movies at the theater in like a fucking year than I've done in my entire life, maybe.
In a week.
I swear, I'm surprised you didn't see Motel Hell at some weird New York grindhouse recently.
I'll probably get to it one of these days. But this weekend I went to go see Basket Case. It was my first time seeing that in theater. I mean, I've seen it before, but it was my first time seeing it in theaters. I went to a 30th anniversary Thanksgiving screening of Addams Family Values.
Hey, dude.
And yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then a double feature of Raiders of the Lost Ark and Rocky.
Odd, but I'll take it.
Yep. I mean, hey, both classics.
Put a couple beers in you. That's a fucking wild night right there.
And then last night I went to a screening of Steven Spielberg's first feature film, Duel, which I had never seen.
I've still never seen that either, man. How was it?
It was really good. It was very Hitchcockian. Very tough, never a dull moment. Very tense. Just a very solid thriller. But yeah, it doesn't.
Cockeying's fun to say, isn't it?
Yeah, but yeah, it doesn't
Rolls
really feel
off
like
the tongue nice.
it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't really feel like anything Spielberg would do after that. But it's a solid thriller that like Steven Spielberg, like you could tell right away that Steven Spielberg knew how to do action. Action
Right.
suspense.
It's kind of like a sort of like a Jaws type thing, isn't it? But with a truck instead of a shark. That's how they always sold it to us when they talk about it. Is there more to it than that?
I mean, Dennis Weaver. You got Dennis Weaver getting chased through the desert by some faceless crazy driving a tanker truck.
Sounds like maybe Joyride owes it a little bit of a debt, in terms of inspiration or something. Isn't that what that's about? Like a trucker fucking terrorizing people along the road?
Yeah.
Paul Walker's in it.
I think so. And then as far as upcoming releases, I'm looking forward to John Woo's Silent Night.
Does look fun.
Yep, I'm kind of, I mean, I love John Woo. I love Hard Boiled and The Killer. And it's exciting to see him come and love Face Off. I also enjoyed Face Off. So
Face Off fucking rules.
Yes,
it really does.
It's gonna be, so it's exciting to see John Woo come back to Hollywood after 20 years.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. When I was on social media and I scrolled to the trailer or whatever, the teaser for Silent Night, and it started, I was like, a groan, like they're remaking that fucking thing again, As much as I like Silent Night, Deadly Night, and the Silent Night remake that they did do. Another movie where someone ends up in a wood chipper, if memory serves. Not as good as any of the other ones we mentioned. When I first scrolled to the trailer, I was like, oh, fuck, they're doing the Black Christmas thing to this too. But then it was a pleasant surprise to see that it had nothing to do with, Killer Santas or anything like that.
Plus, it's John Woo. He's a legend.
Really is. So for me, I haven't watched a ton of schlock or movies in general this last week. I tried to do the Thing triple feature. That didn't work out for me yet. Some stuff came up. But what I have been watching a lot of on Tubi of all places is CZ fucking W, baby. We got into a pretty good wrestling conversation last time. Me and this furry little fella down here were hanging out. Really good wrestling conversation, actually. Maybe the best one we've ever had on our channel. And there's probably much more to come as I continue down this journey of watching garbage wrestling and old indie promotions and territory stuff, because I just can't stand modern WWE. CZW is not good. It's not even okay a lot of the time. It's pretty bad. It's if ever there was a wrestling promotion, and I'm sure Cody can agree with this, that embodied the idea of pure schlock entertainment, it's CZW. They went far beyond what ECW even managed to do back in the day in terms of trashy wrestling. Cody sounds like he's about to say something. What do you got, buddy?
I've never thought of it that way, but I wouldn't argue that point.
It's just pure gratuitous mayhem for the sake of mayhem. Almost no storylines that I can decipher. And I've been watching probably upwards of 15 hours of it, maybe probably about 15 hours of it in the last week. And just a lot of crazy fucking matches that those guys were putting on out there. I love the element of that anything can happen. We've all seen blade jobs in wrestling before. We grew up with ECW and, the Attitude Era of the main promotions and everything, Japanese wrestling, death matches that they would have over there. I've never seen blood spurt out of someone's fucking forehead in the same way that I've seen it on these CZW shows, man. And I think this is the first time I've ever sat down in my life and actually watched full CZW events. I think I'd only ever seen like internet clips, when something particularly insane would happen. They would make their rounds around the wrestling world or whatever. So even, I guess, casuals like us that watched, the bigger promotions would end up seeing them, I like prior to this, like really diving into CZW, the most low budget I've ever really went with wrestling outside of really old school territory stuff was Ring of Honor back in the day. I love Ring of Honor is awesome. Wish they never got rid of their streaming service that they had. They beat WWE to that by like 10 years. You used to be able to pay like $5 a month and go through a really janky browser fucking website and watch like every single Ring of Honor event that ever happened. It was fucking awesome. I don't know what happened. I don't understand how all this wrestling stuff keeps getting bought by Vince McMahon or whoever controls all this shit. But I don't think you can find the Ring of Honor stuff like you used to be able to. And maybe somebody in the comments can eventually, educate me so I point me in the right direction, because I miss watching that shit. TNA had the same thing too, which is, it boggles my mind that WWE Network was like such a groundbreaking thing for a lot of people, when it's really, if you wanted to do that, you could do it through pretty much all the promotions. New Japan Pro Wrestling still has their own like subscription service, if you can, navigate the website on account of all the Japanese. I wish I could. I need to learn it because I want to watch that sweet, sweet Japanese wrestling. But CZW is garbage. It's garbage wrestling for the sake of garbage wrestling. And there's something oddly like wholesome about it in a way, watching those guys go out there and just shred each other for the sake of entertaining like 50 people. It's, it's not WrestleMania, you're not going to see WrestleMania quality matches on those shows, but man, will you see a bunch of fucking shish kebabs stuck in a guy's forehead. And that's pretty fucking cool too. So that's what I've been doing in terms of like my watching stuff, basically doing that and then staying up to date on all the podcasts that I listen to. Tosh from Tosh.0 has a podcast that he launched recently. Highly fucking recommend it. His whole thing is he's doing the opposite of all these comedy podcasters, where instead of just having other comedians and celebrities on all the time, Tosh is doing exactly what he did with Tosh.0, where he has like some random asshole on there. Like the first episode was his wife's gynecologist. I think the second episode was this athlete guy that has no legs. He's like the fastest guy on earth with no legs or whatever. And then the third episode is his wellness guru, which I haven't watched yet, but those first two episodes were sick. Obviously doing the Bad Friends thing, all my normal podcast lineups of the comedy podcasts. More recently, we've had some friends in the horror sphere launch some podcasts. Our old boy, Canadian boy Ryan, came out with Hormonal Werewolves. If you guys want to watch a real good podcast, check that out. They typically do a double feature in every episode where they kind of take a movie from back in the day and a movie from now and compare them. One of their best ones they've done so far was Suspiria versus the remake. It was real good times. And then, of course, Dead and Lovely. They're kind of my go-to horror podcast. You'd asked me about, I don't know if we were on air yet, Forrest, but you asked me about a Danielle Harris podcast that I have not checked out yet.
Yeah, Talk Scary to Me. It's her and Scout Taylor Compton, who played Laurie Strode.
She's like a hot chick too, right?
Yes, they're both hot chicks. I would say sexy Halloween actresses talking love, sex, horror, and true crime.
Sounds fucking awesome. I'll definitely be giving it a go. I will admit it's not out of snobbiness or like a DIY fucking, ethos, but I tend to just watch like podcasts that regular people put out. There's several of those though, isn't there, where it's like older horror icons doing a podcast?
So I know there's that. I know there's. I know that's the one. Well, Talk Scary is the one that I listen to regularly. Besides that, I just started Mick Garris's podcast. I don't know how I completely ignored that for the longest time. And then Screen Dreams, which is hosted by Catherine Corcoran, Barbara Crampton. There's some dude who's like, they have a third host. It's some guy. I forget who he is.
Fuck it, dude. The fact that you were able to say both their last names right in a row like that without stumbling is pretty awesome. I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah. And then the one podcast I listen to that's pretty much outside the realm of horror and B movies is Hard Feelings with Jeanette McCurdy.
There you go.
Hosted by Jeanette McCurdy, former Nickelodeon actress turned best-selling author, just talking about whatever's on her mind.
Yeah, and wait a minute, is that one that Christy Carlson Romano chick went on? I think she was on there, wasn't she?
No, she wasn't.
Or does she have her own podcast?
Christy Carlson Moronic has her own podcast. Where she
Everybody has a fucking podcast nowadays. And it's awesome. Honestly, I think it's fucking rad. It's so cool to find out about these new ones. I again tend to, where horror podcasts are concerned, exist more in like our realm of it. Like Random Joe's just doing a podcast. One that I've tried that I think I still need to keep trying is Last Podcast on the Left. I think I just hit those at like a time when I wasn't in the mood for the episodes, because they have a bit more of a boisterous, like over the top kind of a deal going on. And when I'm listening to podcasts at work, I tend to like them to be a little bit more chill. But maybe one of these nights after I got a 12-pack in me or something, I'll fire up one of their shows.
I would say Dinosaur Dracula is another one. Actually, not Dinosaur Dracula. Purple Stuff Podcast. It's hosted by
Dustin.
Oh, hey, what's up?
Hey, I am. I wanted to say there was some recent thing going on with Last Podcast on the Left where they got in trouble for doing something kind of messed up. So I just wanted to alert you to that just in case.
I don't give a fuck. Unless they killed someone,
anyway.
raped someone, anything like that. I don't care.
So,
If they were saying shit that offended me in like the first episode that I listened to. So those.
At any rate, here we're talking about Motel Hell, and we were on a podcast. So sorry to cut you off there, Forrest.
No problem. We're doing our roundup here at the beginning.
That does sound like a fun podcast. I found one recently off of something called Talking Simpsons, where they basically just go through Simpsons episodes with like a history of the show kind of thing, and that's been pretty fun. Turns out they also do.
My kid watches that.
They do something called What a Cartoon, and yesterday I listened to like this 3-hour thing where they talked about like the first 5 episodes of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it was actually pretty sweet. So,
dude, I've been trying to get something like that going for ages, but finding someone to co-host it with you is a beast of an issue, because TV shows are a lot more ground to cover. But BoobTube Chronicles is the name that I've been holding on to for ages. BoobTube Chronicles, remember it. It's coming someday.
Yeah. Well, I think the research too has got to be tough for stuff like that, because they were talking about this show had 150 some episodes, and that's what they watched just to produce one 3-hour show on the topic. I mean, that's quite a lot of work. So,
nah, that's not my vibe. I'm season to season with the BoobTube. That seems to be the way to do it. Do your top 5.
For them, it's more of it's almost like it's a fun time. Like it's like a comedy show, but it's almost like a lecture in terms of just how much information is in there. It's like there was a lot of like making of behind the scenes stuff that they said in that episode that I did not know before. Like stuff about how Bebop and Rocksteady were created like by Playmates, because they were like, okay, we need more figures than just the turtles, and like the whole thing was like heavily coordinated. Like it was really, really interesting.
Oh yeah, it makes sense. I like to look into that. So I guess what we do at the beginning of these episodes, since they take the place of our normal Schlock Talk episodes where we just do weekly watch lists and shit. We do what we call random recommendations, rapid fire. I haven't settled on a fucking name for it. It doesn't really need one, but it's more fun if it has one. What's a recommendation from your recent watch list you'd like to put out there to the people? And then what's one from your upcoming watch list that you're particularly excited about? Think about those for a moment. I had just finished talking about my watching of CZ fucking W. The fucking is important. You got to put it in there. The new metal themes on that fucking show sucks so bad, dude. It's such a good time. Check it out on Tubi. And then as far as upcoming watches that I'm super looking forward to is Godzilla -0. That's like the only thing I'm thinking about right now in terms of upcoming watch. I've got a stack of movies I'm trying to work through, but once I saw that was actually hitting our theater on Fridays, it kind of moved a lot of that stuff off the list. I am super fucking hyped for -0. Little bummed they didn't care. It seems like they didn't really carry on what was going on in Shin Godzilla. I liked the weirdness of that. Maybe there's something to it in the film, like they bridge the gap, I would hope. What were you going to say, Dustin?
I think Shin Godzilla works best kind of self-contained, like on its own. I mean, a sequel to it would be interesting, but on the one hand, it would be nice to see where they were going to take it with like the humanoid like Godzillas.
Yeah, shooting fucking random
on
rotting
the
people
other
out of his
hand-
tail.
On the other hand, I do think it also works just as well as, you know, like leave people wondering like what could have been. You know, like I don't know, it would be fine to get more in that storyline, but I think it also is totally fine for it to be self-contained and end there and just kind of keep people guessing for all time.
I can
like
get
kind of like
behind
the
that.
ending of the thing, you know, like
Yeah.
keep people guessing forever.
Right. Romanticize the weirdness a little bit.
Exactly.
I can totally get behind romanticizing the weirdness. So I guess over to you, man. What's, you got something off of your recent watch list you want to plug and something off the upcoming one, then we'll dive into the Motel Hell shit. Obviously, you don't join us very often. You can throw out a couple, and if you find a couple that you want to plug back in there too, Jonathan, go ahead. You guys are new to being on with us more regularly, and it's cool to hear what you guys have been up to.
Yeah, ironically, I usually don't listen to many horror podcasts myself because I'm always afraid of, accidentally like ripping off somebody's like thought, like when I have a discussion about something later, which is probably not something I should really be too worried about. But at any rate, for recent stuff, I'm not sure what I would recommend. I mean, on the show I usually do, we did Totally Killer from Amazon recently, and I still really enjoy and kind of advocate for that.
That was a fun movie. I actually got to meet. I actually have met Olivia Holt, who played Pam, who played the younger Pam. I've had the good fortune of meeting her a few times.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah, she's cute.
There you go. Not seen that one. I know. Good.
We did it on the. Oh, right. I don't know if we had you on for that. We did it recently for the other show.
No,
yeah,
it's on Amazon.
It's an Amazon movie. So if you have Prime, you can just watch it, and it's pretty good. It's in the vein of the recent trend of horror movies being made from like classic films. So if Freaky was Freaky Friday, Happy Death Day to You is Groundhog Day, Totally Killer is Back to the Future.
Fuck yeah, I'm in.
And it's
they also did one recently called It's a Wonderful Knife. It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Knife. I haven't seen it yet, but it does drop on streaming Friday, I think.
Yeah, it's coming out.
Dead and Lovely did an episode for it, and they made it sound fucking awesome,
but...
dude. Even though they hated it, but that's how you got to roll.
I love this trend of slasher movies crossing over with comedy.
Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
Isn't late to rest that one with the dude that's got like the chrome mask on the cover, right?
Ooh.
Yeah. That's all I know about it is like dope chrome mask. I haven't seen the movie though.
I think the first one.
Hello, Clint. Clint is from Hamityville Horror Podcast, and more recently Scream Until You Like It, and they just put out a dope fucking episode on the Clint Eastwood movie, The Deadpool. You guys need to keep surprising me with those fucking awesome non-horror reviews, dude. That was my favorite episode of your guys' show so far. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I bought the Dirty Harry movie set, like the Blu-ray, like multi-pack.
Oh, I still have that. I saw that DVD set 15 years ago.
Well, it did not come with the Deadpool, which
really
I need to find the Deadpool. Yeah, it came with
the best way to get them is to just do if you really want to get the best deal on Clint Eastwood movies, you buy that 40 movie essential Clint Eastwood set and then just put them all in your own cases. You're still going to pay way less than you would pay to get all those movies. It has every single Dirty Harry movie in it, plus it has every fucking thing that you really want for Clint Eastwood in that
like
set.
All the good ones.
Yeah, it's all DVD, but I don't know that you need most of those in Blu-ray.
It was a crime opportunity for me because it was at Dollar General for like $5, like 4 movie set, and it's like, oh, that's very convenient. It was just kind of I had forgotten about the Deadpool though, so when I saw that, it was like, wow, it's all of them. And then I checked when I got home. It's like, hey, wait a minute.
I always forget that fucking Jim Carrey's in that movie.
Yep.
Really?
Roses.
Billed as James Carrey. Like not even billed as Jim Carrey. Yeah, it was fucking fantastic, Clint. So definitely keep those up. I'm not saying do them all the time. but I am saying at least every once in a while you guys gotta keep surprising us with those. You guys started with Planet of the Apes though, right? So, like the OG one, so it's not even like there's any expectation that you have to stick to just horror, which is awesome. I do think you guys should fully review Tightrope though. You sold me on it by how much you guys complained about it in the fucking Deadpool episode. So now I need to hear you guys just rip.
Yeah, I need to check that out. I need to check out that and Firefox.
Firefox isn't bad. Not my favorite. But you know, you can do worse with the Clint Eastwood movies. We also really need to get to the bottom of his workout montages that they do in those films, because what's up with that, bro? I'm sorry, I think we cut someone off here with the thought, but I had to say what's up to Clint, man. I was hyped on this fucking that Clint Eastwood review.
I think I don't think I named like an older thing I've been looking forward to watching. I mean, there's a handful of other names. I have that movie pile too, and like I somewhat regret some of my Black Friday spending after some surprises I got, but I did pick up a couple of cool things, including Tremors 2 is on the way from Arrow, which that was probably the thing I've wanted most all year. And I also managed to get a while ago the Chucky Bride through Cult set that Shot Factory put out. So I'm planning to do a big comeback to my YouTube channel with an unboxing of that, which it is quite a crazy looking set. I
didn't buy shit. I didn't buy anything. I think I bought a bean burrito and like a frozen pizza or something on Black Friday. That was it.
I mean, so my day job is in banking, so I had like no time to go out, and I pretty much I work in banking, and pretty much everybody's trying to spend money, so I had to work.
Yeah, that seems to be how that would work. Yeah, that's a bummer, man.
I mean,
I worked as well, but I didn't really give a shit because those sales are all a fucking scam nowadays.
Pretty much.
For the most part, anything you can do physically in person is a fucking scam. Ordering online or whatever, I'm sure you can get some cool shit. I mean, I've definitely done them through like Full Moon, or I don't think Full Moon does Black Friday, but you get the gist. I've done them through websites, and those are cool. But in person, I'm not going to leave my house, to go do that shit. It was mostly
websites for me. Like, I have a bunch of like supplies and stuff, like saved in lists on Amazon, and it was like, oh, this medicine you need is on sale. It's like, oh, thank God. It was mostly stuff like that. But I did get 2 or 3 movies from different places.
Right.
And so
what do you recommend off that upcoming list then? What's the thing you're most stoked to check out?
Really the extras on Tremors 2. But I also got a couple documentaries from Walmart, out of all things. Oh, you're getting a Banana Splits movie? Oh, I love that movie. I did a review for that. I love that movie. I got something called I can't remember the title. I will grab it. It is right next to me.
After looking at Country's comments, I just realized I was calling it Godzilla -0 the whole time, which is a cool title, but would also just make the title.
Yeah, I was trying to be like, it's called -1, but I couldn't do
it. Listen, I only found out that this new Godzilla movie was even actually happening like a month ago.
Well, I mean, they only told anybody about it a month ago.
What's that?
They only really announced it like a month and a half ago. So.
They only announced it a month and a half ago, and it's already coming out? Insane.
I think it was like...
I guess Toho's still fucking unhinged like usual. That's...
So, anyway, so...
I'm sure they're going to copyright claim our review of it, too. That's how they roll.
From Walmart, which I guess is taking the place of Best Buy now, because when I was on Walmart's website, a lot of the Best Buy exclusive steelbooks are suddenly Walmart exclusive steelbooks, like Meg 2, The Trench, Walmart exclusive steelbook, and a bunch of other big movies, Walmart exclusive steelbook, which in the past, looking at the Zabi steelbooks from the UK, Best Buy steelbooks are just Zabi steelbook art, like brought over. So And there have been times when I have found the Best Buy exclusive steelbooks at a Walmart, like physically. It's like, why is this here for sale? You know? So I think there's some distribution company deal behind that, so that, you know, all the steelbooks that you used to get at Best Buy, you're getting at Walmart now. Which the whole point of that is there's a documentary about Robert Englund and a Walmart exclusive steelbook for it, which, to my amazement, arrived completely undamaged, despite being in one of those really awful, like, cardboard clam things. So, and this was something like 18, and it wasn't too bad.
I'm down to check it out. Robert Englund doesn't get enough credit for his other roles.
Yeah,
he's fantastic.
I would say he doesn't get enough credit for. I would say 976 Evil is an underrated flick, and I wish I would have liked to have seen. I wish he could have done more in the director's chair.
976 Evil will appear on this show in the near future. It's part of our 2025 lineup. It's not part of 2024.
Yeah, I picked that up quite a while ago when they first brought it out on Blu-ray, and the commentary track on that was really fun because it's just him and his wife just hanging out and like having a good time. It's like, wow,
he's pretty good in Eating Alive as well as Buck.
He was just
my name's Buck. I'm raring to fuck. Get up on those knees.
Yeah.
I love him in that movie.
Anyway, it was just, there was a lot of good energy in that commentary. So, and then the second thing I picked up is Living with Chucky, which is a documentary about, I guess, just, you know, being a production child and growing up with the effects team that made the movies. So I don't know a lot about it, but it sounded really fun. And it had a slipcover, which I did not know about, but you know,
feel like I watched it at some point. I think
Cody
told us to watch it.
It came out a year ago. It was a Screambox original. Not sure what Screambox is, or, well, I don't know. But yeah, so I've played the Dead by Daylight game, and Chucky just came out as a killer for Dead by Daylight, so I'm really kind of up for like more Chucky stuff. So, which is why I've got that big pile of, you know, Bride, Seed, Cult, Curse, and Cult. And then I have season 2 of the Chucky TV series to go, and now I have this documentary to kind of wrap everything together with. So that is going to be a fun week whenever I eventually get to that. So I guess those would be my recommendations for something.
Good ones, man. You gave us a lot to think about there. Yeah, I'll have to double check if I've seen that Chucky documentary. Again, I think Cody recommended it to us, and I watched it like all hammered one night, which means I definitely fell asleep, like at best 2/3 of the way through it. I don't do well with documentaries when I'm in inebriated. Which just begs the question of why I continually try it, you know.
They get my brain working. I like
that. You guys know what a Screambox is, though?
I think Screambox is that streaming service run by Bloody Disgusting, like trying to be a rival to Shudder, and it's it's like, what are you guys doing? But on the other hand, I like those guys, and it's like, well, I want you to see. It's just I cannot pay for 2 of these at once.
Looks like Country watched Eaten Alive and Motel Hell for the first time in the same night. It was a nice, unexpected movie night. Yeah, dude, those would pair very nicely together, I would imagine. Yeah, Eaten Alive, it gets credit from dudes like us, but it doesn't get enough credit, I feel like. It's a pretty amazing little horrific, like, soundstage slasher film that we don't get enough of nowadays. There's a certain magic to shooting a movie on a soundstage that I think is lost in modern movies, you know? Like, it feels like a fucked up theme park ride, and that's why I like movies that are shot on sound stages from any era. And Eaten Alive was a cool throwback to when it was, like, necessary. And also, I mean, you know, I know Dustin likes a good killer alligator movie, or was it a crocodile? I don't remember.
I think in Eaten Alive it is technically a crocodile, or actually I'm not sure, because in some of the art and like dialogue, it's a crocodile, but from the look of it, it looks more like an alligator to me. So a lot of people don't necessarily know the difference. Like the difference is a blunt snout's an alligator, sharp snout is a crocodile. Also, with the way the teeth overlap, like you can see both the top and bottom rows of a crocodile's teeth jut out, whereas an alligator, like you only see the top row. So I'd have to rewatch it to double check. But I think it is supposed to be a crocodile in material for that I've read recently.
Which would make some evolutionary sense, eh? Like, crocodiles live in the ocean too sometimes, right? So they would need like more teeth that are able to snatch shit.
But I wouldn't say live in the ocean.
You get what I'm saying. But I mean, like a fucking alligator is pretty much just grabbing shit from the shore, so they just need those big old teeth. Jonathan or Forrest, you guys ever see Eaten Alive?
Yeah. Eaten Alive. I don't know.
With Eaten Alive's Tobe Hooper with the guy who runs the hotel and just like throws people to his the poster is really hard to forget because it's that guy holding like a big scythe, like standing over like the crocodile with like its mouth open. It's like meet the maniac and his pet, It's and I was gonna say I think Eaten Alive and Motel Hell are okay. That would explain it then, country. Thank you. Crocodiles also generally get a lot bigger than alligators. That's an important thing to factor in too. But anyway,
there's also a difference between snouts too.
Yep, I did say that. Yeah, it's like kind of a versus. But anyway, so I think Eaten Alive and Motel Hell aren't separated by too much space, are they? Like Motel Hell is either 80 or 82. 80. What? So it is 80, and then Motel Hell is either 77 or 79, right? When is Eaten Alive?
I think 74 for Eaten Alive, isn't it?
No, it's
I think it's 74.
No, because 74 Cooper did Texas
with better.
Yeah, that's what I said. So, because in my mind,
I started trying to upload this fucking trailer again, so I'm gonna have to hop out and hop back in. But give us an exact date on Eaten Alive once I get back.
In my mind, it's either 77 or 79.
76.
76. Okay, so I am very wrong. Goddamn.
Yeah.
There is an Eaten Live movie that came out in 1980, though. So
Umbrella Lindsay.
Yeah,
that would make sense then.
Yeah, I would say 74. Hooper just done Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so I don't think he would have been doing.
No, there's no way he was doing two movies at once. I knew Eaten Alive had to have come later. Because in like retrospectives on his career, that's when they talk about it. Like after Chainsaw, he tried going back to the drawing board of horror with this, and it wasn't as successful, but it's still stuck out in a lot of people's memories. So, and the point I was trying to make too was Motel Hell and Eaten Alive. I mean, they're not separated by that much space, like in terms of release, and they also have almost the same like feel to them too. Like I feel like Jed's Hotel could be like down the road a few miles from the motel. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it fits into that world very well.
Well, and Tobe Hooper was supposed to direct Motel Hell.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense actually.
And I think he was supposed to do it for Universal videos.
I like that we've also heard Tobe. What did Dustin called him? Tobe Hooper, and you called him Toby Hopner. So I want to combine the two and call him Tube Hopner. I think that sounds like a dope porn name or
actually,
like a cool makeover's name. It's Tobe.
Yes.
I love you guys. This is great. So, we're about an hour into this thing. We're 49 minutes into this thing, so we should probably get into Motel Hell at some point.
Right.
We definitely gave Evan Jacobs plenty of time to show up, so he'll hop in when he hops in, if he hops in at all. But we have a movie to cover here, and that movie is fucking Motel Hell. it takes all types of critters to make Farmer Vincent Fritters, and we're
Vincent
certainly all
Fritters.
type of critters right here.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Motel Hell came out in 1980, as we've obviously discussed. It was written by Robert Jaffe and Stephen Jaffe, with Tim Tuccello uncredited as part of it, as well as Frank Cololo uncredited as part of whatever reworking it went through to become the original script, or to go from being the original script to what we got. It was directed by Kevin Connor, and I think his like feature film debut, maybe, or he hadn't done too much before this. I think he did one movie prior to this, and I forget the name of it at the moment. It was produced by the Jaffe brothers, assuming, you know, Robert and Steve. Those guys produced this thing. It was shot by Thomas Del Ruth as director of cinematography. It had music by Lance Rubin, which is kind of a big deal. It was distributed by United Artists. It came out on October 18th of 1980, which is pretty cool. Much more of a Thanksgiving movie to me, but at least it was out for the holiday. It has a runtime of 142 minutes or some shit like that, which is insane for a movie like this, but it actually uses it pretty well. We'll get into that. It stars Rory Calhoun, Nancy Parsons, Nina Axelrod, and Paul Linke. Those are pretty much the main characters of the film. I guess we'll start with you, John. What was your first exposure to Motel Hell? You know, what kind of your history with it, and what was your first impression of it when you saw it?
I saw it on Monster Vision with Joe Bob Briggs. I can't remember what movie it was also showing because it didn't really matter, because Motel Hell stole the show. But I saw it like that and fell in love with it. So we bought the VHS. It wasn't the VHS you have. It was like a bigger box with like a folding case. I wish I still had it. I don't, but
Those clamshells, baby.
yeah, the clamshell one. From MGM, and then I think I had the DVD, which we talked about earlier. So throughout the years, I've upgraded it. I'm probably gonna stop at the DVD or the Blu-ray I have. I really don't want to keep upgrading the same movie over and over again. But it's one of those movies that
it's not
every
worth
time I
it.
watch
Motel
it gets
Hell
better and
doesn't
better.
look good enough to need that many.
Yeah, I agree.
We could probably stop at Chef Factory's like
Sorry,
more
I'll
recent,
stop stepping on your first
more
impressions,
recent
man.
4K. Yeah, because it's not going to get better than that. But I agree otherwise.
Yeah, didn't they re-release it in a steelbook that had like a new remaster?
Yeah, Chef Factory's been a little weird with that, so it's a bit hard to keep for me to keep track sometimes. But so I have the first Blu-ray that they released a few years ago, and then they did do a steelbook set when they were like on the trend of re-releasing all their stuff in steelbooks. And then, from what I understand, recently they did a 4K version, and I think they also made a separate new steelbook with new art for the 4K. But I'm not 100% sure on the status of that. So they've kind of over-released things to some
Yeah, they
extent.
did.
Like, why can't I should be able to remember this, you know?
Yeah, I think every movie
Dude,
they
half
put
of
out
these
now
movies
has
they
a
keep
4K.
putting out like that.
Yeah, they do that all
Like
the time.
half of these movies too look better on the old DVD or VHS releases. Like, you know, I don't know, maybe it's an aesthetic choice for me, but I feel like some of them
play
haven't
better with
aged
like
up
film
to
grain
the.
or like blurriness, hiding effects, you know.
Yeah, Back to the Future is a great example of that. Like, I honestly have a hard time watching my Blu-ray set of Back to the Future because I can see all the seams and creases, and it just takes me out of the movie. Like, it's too clean, you know. I would level the same accusation at some of the James Bond releases that they've done.
I can agree.
Motel Hell, from what I saw on the DVD, which is like the 2K scan of it, right? That looked fine. That's about as good as I need this movie to look. You know, I could take it on a Blu-ray, I suppose, but do I need it? Yeah. You know. And I fucking love this movie. It's just, I don't know that it needs to look much better than that. You're losing some atmosphere a little bit the more you clean up something like Motel Hell. So what was your first impression of it when you saw it? I mean, you know.
I absolutely loved it. You know, I can't remember how much was edited out because of being the TV version. But I remember actually loving. I'm watching it right now. The scene with the pig head and the chainsaw duel. That scene right there was my absolute favorite one in the movie. That right there sold the movie on me completely.
Like, I love how like Vincent has just completely lost it at this point, and he's just like, he's just fully in.
Yeah, that maniacal laughing through the whole thing.
Yeah. The thing is, he is probably the most likable cannibal I've ever seen in a movie. Like,
very, like,
I don't hate him. I can't hate him.
There's a very folksy charm to him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Even at the end of the movie, there's still that sort of like wholesomeness to Farmer Vincent that makes him endearing after he has like a fucking Husqvarna buried in his rib cage, you know. So Forrest, what was your first exposure to Motel Hell, and you know, kind of your history with it, and like what was your first impression of it when you saw it?
All right, so actually the first time I heard about this movie was on a rate so I was living in so when I was a teenager I used to live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I remember there was this morning radio show that I listened to called Radio from Hell, and they would have this guy on called it was Punk's Movie Review. This guy they just nicknamed Punk, and he would come on and talk about all sorts of B movies and schlock and cinematic schlock. And I remember on one episode he talked about Motel Hell, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of it. So I'm like, okay, I gotta check this out. And eventually I did find it on TV one like. I remember like, it was one of those movies that would come on like like HBO and Showtime a lot.
Yeah.
So it was ever on, I watched it. And I knew quite a bit of the supporting cast. So, and also I knew quite of the support. I was quite familiar with some of the supporting cast, like Nancy Parsons. I had already seen Porky's by the time I saw Motel first. By the time I saw Motel Hell, I had already seen Porky's, so I knew Nancy Parsons as Beulah Ballbricker.
Yeah, grabbing that dick through the wall, dude.
Well, yep.
Fucking, that's always going to be my image of this lady. And then when you see fucking Motel Hell, it's just like, yeah, I feel like that's kind of her vibe.
Yeah, totally like what Ballbricker is like outside of school hours.
Yeah, she's rad though.
And then Elaine Joyce is one of the swingers because when I was a teenager, I watched a lot of Game Show Network, and watching all these old game shows from the 70s and 80s, and she popped up on a lot of them.
Right.
And then John Ratzenberger. Okay, this was the weird one. John Ratzenberger.
Michael McNally. Everyone, give him a round of applause, real quick. Michael's always coming in to fucking christen the streams. This dude deserves it. Anyway, continue for us. Sorry about that.
But you had John Ratzenberger, Clifford, before, pre Cheers, playing some rock and roll drummer. Most bizarre thing I had ever, considering I knew him as Cliff. It was just bizarre to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a very fun movie. Again, it was one of those movies that I would stop and watch it when it came on television. And then when I got to college, one of my classmates from one of my film classes was selling off a bunch of his movie collection. And so I picked it up and he had Motel Hell in one of those MGM Midnight Movie 2-packs with Deranged. So I bought that off of him.
Another great one.
Yep. So I bought that off of him.
Early Tom Savini Deranged.
I just saw Deranged for the first time the other week, so I've seen that too.
Surprisingly good, right? I think it might be the best Ed Gein movie.
Yeah, well, it's funny. It's funny though, because Robert Blossom is the main serial killer of that movie, and it's funny to watch that and think, if you've seen Home Alone, and think, wow, Buzz was really right about that guy.
Fuck that dude. Yeah. The shovel wielding fucking maniac. Dude, he was putting people in that salt fucking bucket for sure. You could just tell by the whole vibe of that scene. I don't care
that
how
why they
nice he
picked
was at the church
Is that
on
why they
Christmas.
picked him to play the old guy because he was in deranged?
I hope
Maybe.
so. I
Right?
really
That'd be
hope
awesome.
so.
It'd be cool if it's true.
I don't know. I had some follow up to that, but I lost it. Go ahead, Forrest.
No, that's all. That's all I had. It was. I mean, it was a fun. I mean, it's a pretty dark. A very fun, dark. Very darkly. A very morbidly funny movie. With a very top-notch cast. With a very top-notch cast and quite a few of them in roles that I would not have expected to see based on what I had previously seen them in, like John Ratzenberger and Elaine Joyce.
Right.
But Nancy Parsons as Ida, it feels like actually, I think this movie came out like just months after Porky's. But it just seems like
I like to think they're the same character.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't really see Ida die in the movie, so maybe she just became a gym teacher.
Or I would say, I like to think that maybe because I think Porky's came out first, so I like to think that she made smoked meats with her brother when school was out for summer.
Smoked meats takes on a whole different connotation too when you got old Ball involved in it, right?
Yeah.
Like she's pulling those fucking pep sticks out from the wall.
Those tallywhackers.
Yeah.
so awful.
Holy shit,
Oh
dude.
I can't handle
So,
it.
Dustin, when were you exposed to Motel Hell, and what was like your first experience with it? How did you find the movie when you finally saw it for the first time?
Mine was kind of weird with it, actually. So when I was in like elementary, like middle school, I used to really love going to the library. And one of the things I would always check out were those Roger Ebert like movie yearbook things with like a bunch of his reviews just like written down, because there really wasn't an internet that functioned in a useful way for most of my life, at least. So I would just, you had to have books like that, like from the library. And so I would just read through those movie yearbooks like all the time. Like I would just pick stuff out, like because I just liked hearing him talk about other stuff I had heard the titles of or whatever. And in the review for The Little Mermaid, of all things, he mentioned that Ursula's Garden of Victims reminded him of the Garden of Victims from Motel Hell.
That's
so I was like, "What's
fucking
Motel
awesome,
Hell?"
dude.
So I went and I read the review for Motel Hell, and he actually liked Motel Hell, even though he hated like almost everything good and pure in the world. Before he actually seemed to like Motel Hell, so I was like, it just didn't happen until 2012 when I got my first apartment and I could watch whatever I wanted for the first time. And I picked it. I found it online, which was kind of difficult. And it really kind of blew me away. I really loved it. Like it has such like an upbeat quality to it. It's like, yeah, we're killing and eating people, but we're not necessarily cruel. Like
they're genuinely nice,
Yeah, some of the gags like really reflect that too.
Eco-conscious too.
Like what?
I said they're eco-conscious too.
Right, like the no preservative thing. I feel like they were making fun of like no preservatives as a marketing tool. But we can talk about that later. But anyway, like one of the scenes that I think best exemplifies that is like they're pouring like knockout gas into like the room of these people that they're going to kill at their hotel.
Oh, the swingers.
Yeah, the swingers, and they're just kind of pretending like they're going along with it. And like Farmer Vincent, he's wearing a gas mask, and they're like, administering gas into the room. Like these people are like falling asleep, and he comes over to like tie the girl up, and she's like, "Oh, what kind of tie is that?"
Hog tie.
And he's just like very polite. He's like, "Oh, hog, ma'am," and he starts tying her up like without being threatening or menacing in the slightest. And that's really a whole movie's vibe. How it's weirdly wholesome in a lot of ways. Like they're just so cheerful. Like it makes it almost creepier.
Yeah,
but
and how they're weirdly matter of fact about it.
And it makes it a fun movie too. So I mean, because
this
could be really sick dark material. if it had a different tone. And I mean, it already kind of is like sick and dark material.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is pretty sick and dark, but
it's
they managed to pull
disarming
it
the
off
way
in a
it's
way
presented.
that's exactly the best way to be. I couldn't have worded
No.
it any better.
Also, there's a line
so
from Ebert's. There's a line from Ebert's review of it that I think about a lot. He describes it as, you know, like he describes it as a sleazoid movie, which you know can be described by their, you know, propensity for violence and, quote, low opinion of human behavior, unquote. And
I love that he loves it, like you were saying earlier. Like, it's somehow more endearing. That it's the most endearing thing maybe about Ebert is that he loves Motel Hell so much, because you can tell he loves it when you're watching that clip of him like reviewing it. The dude is stoked on this movie, you know, and it's because it's like kind of clever. It's
and
not
yet he
just
hated Chainsaw Massacre. Like, what?
Or
because it's not clever, you know. I mean, as much as I love those movies, it's a blunt force trauma to the fucking face is what you're getting when you watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
Motel Hell is not that.
Like, geez.
It incorporates elements of that, but it's not the same thing, you know. So for me, Motel Hell was one of those movies. Okay, I had to look at this VHS cover, exactly this VHS cover, in my video store constantly growing up. And I would look at it and pass over it. Because let's be honest, okay, in terms of VHS cover art in the 90s, this pretty whack, you know. It's pretty fucking subpar to the other shit that we were presented with. You know, so for years and years and years, this exact VHS tape, I mean, it still has like hometown video stickers on it, I'm sure, you know, was sitting in my local video store, and I would just pass it by all the time. And then finally, when I was 15 years old, so this would have been, I don't know, 2002 or something like that, they made the switch from VHS to DVD. And like many of you fucking B-movie rascals in this fucking chat, I'm sure, I absolutely went ravenous buying like the, you know, all the clearance shit that they put all this type of stuff on sale for you to come in there and buy it. One of the craziest things ever was Crazy Mike's video, where every ticket was 10 cents. So you could get 10 movies for a fucking $1, dude. Hollywood Video did something very similar. I think it was like $0.25 a movie or something like that when they sold their VHS stock. So really, you know, as a kid, I collected movies through like Columbia House and shit like that. And then occasionally my parents would spring for a brand new VHS from like a store for me or something. But when video stores did this number is where my horror collection truly began, you know, because I went in there and pillaged those motherfuckers, you know. I would be taking all my drunk stepdad's cans back to the store so that I could get as much fucking money as possible. Pretty sure I even stole a couple of things and pawned them during this period. It was the only time in my life I've ever done that. Not for drugs, not for alcohol, for fucking movies. And that's the way that it should be, dude. But yeah, I picked up this copy of Motel Hell, probably 10 cents or whatever, however the fuck they were charging for it. And I brought it home and watched it as a 15-year-old kid and was absolutely floored. You know, its covers like this is why Motel Hell used to be touted around as like a lost horror classic, right? I'm sure, Jonathan, you remember reading all types of posts about that on forums and shit back in the day, about how Motel Hell was this like unsung classic. Nowadays, I feel like it's got the love that it deserves. I mean, it's widely recognized as an awesome cult classic, you know. But back then, it really was, because of covers like this, ignored for shit like The Video Dead, you know. So you get the idea. Like, you were watching vastly more terrible movies because you thought that this thing wasn't going to rule, and then it ends up ruling, and you're like, holy shit, what have I been doing with my life? You know, so you go through that whole VHS collection you bought, and you watch the shit with the crappiest covers. And then you find a lot of gems. Instantly loved it. Okay, it reminded me of like Psycho. It reminded me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It reminded me of shit like Eaten Alive. It instantly fit in this perfect little niche that you didn't even know needed filling in your horror library of like really sort of endearing, almost heartwarming, gross 80s hotel horror classics, you know? I mean, Motel Hell is it's a cut above the rest of a lot of horror films in its execution, and then the whole concept of it really does make it fucking pretty metal. You know, it's an old dude and his sister wife selling beef jerky out of this fucking random roadside hotel, and they end up kidnapping this girl and fucking Motel. Excuse me. Thank you, Forrest. And if you type in Hotel Hell Best Moments, you are not going to get the same result as Motel Hell Best Moments. It's a bunch of fucking Gordon Ramsay, and nobody needs that in their life. I made that mistake at least 3 times, like getting footage for this. I kept typing in Hotel Hell. This movie fucking rules, okay? That's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. It is just a classic 80s horror film that I think a lot of us probably overlooked at first until someone put it right in front of us.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. And I think some of that does come down to the way it was marketed in some ways at the time. You know, if it had better people behind that kind of shit, we would have rented this movie a lot sooner at the video store. Am I right or am I right?
You're right.
Absolutely. I mean, this movie was not on my radar until I heard about it on that radio show.
Dude, if the poster art for the fucking poster was on this VHS, I'd have rented it instantly.
Yeah.
But it also gives away the entire fucking movie. So I get it. I mean, I went into this semi-ambiguous to what the plot was really going to be. I just knew that it was going to involve these 2 people at a motel. I didn't, back then, as a 15-year-old, I'm sure I didn't give this a proper perusing on the back. I just bought it and watched it. Did not disappoint. So, obviously, we don't have the profile and we've done the tail of the tape. Now it's time to start breaking down what Motel Hell is. And that's essentially a story about a dude who is, stealing people and planting them in a garden out behind his farmhouse. Our story here in the film picks up with him, basically abducting this girl that is part of a motorcycle accident that he causes out in the backwoods. We're not brought into that fact till later, but it's pretty evident right from the onset that something he did cause this shit. There's still some ambiguity to whether or not Farmer Vincent is a totally bad guy at the beginning of Motel Hell, because you're not sure that he caused the accident, but it does feel like it.
Yeah.
And then he takes the girl home and then just tells her that her boyfriend has died and he took the liberty of already burying him. And that's not entirely untrue, as the movie plays out.
Yeah.
The dude, for all intents and purposes, was supposed to be dead after the point that he was gone. And he did bury him. You kind of think Farmer... What's that?
I said from the neck down.
Sure enough. What are your guys' first opinions of Farmer Vincent as a character when you fire up this movie? Do you think immediately that the dude... I mean, I think the opening sequence with like the Tim Burton-esque music is pretty fucking sick too. It really does lend like whimsical, dark quality to this movie. And I can't come up with any other comparison other than it reminds me of a Tim Burton. Like the way that opening theme kind of dances around. Do you get what I'm saying, Dustin?
I think so, yeah. Like Farmer Vincent is kind of disarming for most of the time we spend with him, really. I mean, it's we see him like in his gas mask, like setting up that trap for cars. Like I think either in the beginning or later. I remember seeing that.
It's later on. At the beginning, you really just see him like kind of seemingly rescue this girl from this motorcycle crash that didn't look that serious to begin with and looked like it kind of came out of nowhere. So once they reveal that it was caused on purpose, it makes a little more sense. But basically, you just see him like loading the people up in the truck, and then when he gets back to the motel, he only brings the girl inside.
Yeah, and that should have probably been our first giveaway that like something is up.
It's
with
odd,
him.
but then he starts spouting the religious stuff, and you just watched him before he left to get them. Watching like a televangelist, and what's it, the DJ Wolfman, whatever the fuck his name is. So it makes some sense that he'd be a little odd, or eccentric, I guess.
It's more of it's like a standard rural country folk sort of thing. Like he just seems like one of those stock characters at first.
He really does, with his duck decoys wandering out there. I mean, I don't know, Jonathan, what do you think of Farmer Vincent and this whole opening scene, mind you? Because it is a pretty great scene with again, I really just liken it to a Tim Burton soundtrack, the way that theme kind of dances around, and it's sinister but also whimsical, and then you see him like sitting in this weird like neon lit environment with televangelists, and that adds a super like crusty, sort of humid backwoods vibe to the whole thing. But then Rory Calhoun somehow brings it all together into, like Dustin said, being kind of wholesome and nondescript. Like you assume the guy might be okay. What do you think, John?
Oh, first off, I like that the title sequence is the actual sign.
Yeah,
I thought that was actually really cool. Like I said that earlier, I find him very likable. I know I have a hard time hating him, even what he's doing. I mean, Nancy Parsons, yes, but him, he's a nice guy. I mean, he comes across as a nice guy.
Yeah,
which is
genuinely
unusual.
Cares.
Yeah, it's unusual for this kind of movie where the cannibals are usually, unlikable or like Leatherface. You
overtly like abnormal, like terrifying.
Like they're certifiable freaks.
Or they just don't speak English and they're eating turtles like they normally would, and we make a big deal out of it. I mean, I think that's pretty much what's going on in most cannibal movies. You guys are correct.
Like most of them could not walk into a store without being detained.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I feel that.
So they made a joke.
I see an awful lot of dudes look like Chop Top at my local Walmart, though. That's all.
Well, they made a joke in the commentary for Leatherface Chainsaw Massacre 3, where they were talking about how Tex is the only member of the family who could like go to a grocery store and not be immediately arrested because he has like buttons all over him and shit. Like he presents as normal, and Farmer Vincent presents as very normal, and I think that's why.
Well, it's Viggo Mortensen, man. Like I like to think in my headcanon that he went on to.
Well, Viggo Mortensen Tex was probably a better killer than Farmer Vincent was, but just disarming in like those similar ways.
I like to think in my headcanon that he went from being part of the Sawyer family or whatever to playing Legolas. Or I mean, not Legolas, Aragorn. Like it's the same dude, It is the same dude, but you know what I mean. Like I like to think that the chainsaw part was real. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think you guys are onto something. The most disarming cannibals ever, and even Ida. I don't think she's that bad. Like on a surface level. She just seems like this guy's pudgy sister, Ain't nothing wrong with that. She moves the hogs around or something.
Yep. Oh, by the way, I just want to mention I got my release dates between this movie and Porky's wrong. This movie came out before Porky's by a few months.
Well, and it was in development. I think it said it was in development for like 3 years before it actually became a movie. So from the time of writing it to the time of it being made was 3 years, so which is crazy to think about for something like this, but it happens,
But in this case,
I'm glad.
But in this case, I think that Ida got out of the meat industry and got a teaching certificate and became a high school PE teacher.
Well, I mean, since we're on the topic, let's examine our two main characters a little bit, okay? Vincent is like this classic, farmer character with his flannels and his overalls, out there running the fucking tractor, doing his farming and whatnot, his cowboy hat. The way he sells the beef jerky is like the most endearing used car salesman or like TV
Folksy charm.
hot. Exactly. Like he's got that folksy charm, as you've mentioned. Whereas Ida clearly has her fucking skills as well. She's the muscle of the operation, for one thing, which is pretty cool. Kind of operates against like gender stereotypes and shit like this. Not to make Motel Hell woke or anything, but you know, it is kind of a progressive idea that like the bruiser of the movie, the lady that is the muscle, is this chick. And I like to think that there was at least some awareness of Porky's when it was going on, because it feels like they make her the muscle in this, and she's kind of the muscle in Porky's in certain ways, you know. So either they just typecast her as the same type of character, or they were sort of trying to give like a nod to it, because they knew that she'd played someone like that before. Either way, both roles, for my money, are iconic, you know. I know a lot of people talk about how Porky's hasn't aged the best with modern sensibilities, and of course it fucking hasn't, you know. No. But Porky's still rules, dude. That movie is fucking so much fun if you can get past the parts where they're actually dropping the M-bomb. That bums me out a little bit, but I don't know. I think we all like Porky's here, and Porky's Revenge to some extent.
Porky's 2, yes. Porky's Revenge,
They're okay. I mean, yeah, I don't even love Porky's 2 that much. I think the first one is a great example of something that could have stood alone. But good times. But, you know, I think they work perfectly together. And Ida's also not only the muscle, but she's like a medical expert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's made very explicitly clear through the movie that she knows not only like backwoods sort of herbal remedy medical stuff, but she also knows like modern terms and, you know, procedures. Like they sanitize her hands before she performs the shit. She's got a scalpel. You know, she talks, I forget what word she uses for that like bandage that goes on their neck, but she uses like the proper Grey's Anatomy term for it and everything, you know, the show, not the book. That's where all my medical knowledge comes from. I'm not a fucking doctor. So I think it's a cool team, you know, in terms of being like a antagonist team or whatever for a horror film. You can't get much better than them. And their chemistry is pretty genuine. Did you guys pick up on that throughout the film at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like they play well as like a brother-sister team.
Yeah. Where the sister is just jealous enough of the women in his life to make sense, but not jealous enough to make it gross, you know?
Right.
Like there's never any point where I joked about the sister wife thing just because that's what a lot of people would assume for their situation. But there's never any point in Motel Hell where you feel like Ida wants to fuck Vincent. No. It's just that she doesn't want the secret given out, you know. Like if anything, she's the most sensible of the two. She doesn't get bewildered by a pair of young tits or whatever.
Although when they were having the picnic with Terry and their other brother Bruce, she almost gives it away. You know, before
almost. But if you listen, she says, "I wasn't gonna actually tell her, Vincent." Like she was just fucking with her. Like she was gonna say that it was probably some animal or something. You know, when you watch that scene like in repetition, like we have to review this, at least a couple of us. You kind of start seeing it as more like, I don't know if she really was going to tell that girl that there was human in the meat. I think she was just drunk and fucking around, and Vincent got a little uppity, you know, and like decided to punch her. I'm on Ida's side the more that I watch this movie as time goes on, because she's the only one actually sticking to the gimmick, you know. She's like, let's not tell this random fucking girl that you just met because you decided not to kill her after she fell off a bike. Our secret, so that we can continue living.
He wanted to like try and marry her. Like that is what happens later. So I think he was like, yeah, I can probably, you know, let you know. You know? Yeah, I think that was
And she
Vincent's
is
logic for-
grossly down for it too. When he wants to marry her, like she's about it, which is just disgusting. And then what it's actually tracks with the logic of the movie, though. If you watch the dude Bo that she gets in the motorcycle wreck with, when it shows the tombstone that fucking Vincent makes for her, that guy's almost 60 years old. And then Vincent is the guy that played him. Actually, Rory fucking Calhoun is like 60 years old in the movie. So clearly, Terry has a thing for older guys, right?
The grave
yeah.
rock.
Let's get our Terry Axelrod thoughts out of the way because I'm sure they're real brief. This girl's basically a non-issue in this movie. She just is the tits that are at the center of it, pretty much.
Literally.
I mean, Terry is one of the worst characters in horror history. I do not understand how she just falls for this shit immediately and is like, I guess I live here now. I guess I live with you guys. And we're making
She does go
smoked
along with it
meats.
very quickly, yeah. Like, I mean,
Never questions it once until the end when it gets real fucking weird. Like, this girl's basically down for the whole thing, including fucking old guys, just so that she has a place to stay. And I don't really understand what's going on there.
she really just kind of goes along with whatever. It's like, oh, I guess I could live here now. He seems nice, and just not a whole lot of other thoughts in that head. So, I mean,
it's to the extent that, in my opinion, the movie could work just fine without Terry. She's just there to get naked a couple of times, I mean, really, in all honesty, think about the movie and think about the things that draw away from the main plot of the movie, the marriage stuff, and it really kind of goes nowhere with that girl. She's just there. Am I wrong? John, what do you think?
Well, the one thing is, it's because of her that drives the younger brother into looking into things further, and that's what ultimately drives the climax with him going in there and fighting Vincent and all that. But other than that, she is just the pretty girl that
And even in that, she is just the pretty girl. She just inspires the dude to go try to fight his brother in a big chainsaw cockfight because he wants the girl more. I mean,
actually, I do find it more like. I mean, yeah, she seems pretty naive, but I do kind of. I'm wondering how their brother, the sheriff, didn't know that they were cannibals. His own brother and sister were killing random passerbys and making.
I always thought he was their nephew. I always thought he was their
he's
nephew.
their brother. They're a trio of siblings in this film, which we'll get to here. What do you think about, Terry, aka Nina Axelrod, as she's known in real life?
Who, me?
Yeah, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Well, like I was saying before, I agree that she is just kind of there to be in danger. She's like a stereotypical character almost. Well, yeah, actually, she kind of is. She's just, she's there to be in peril so Bruce can rescue her. Let's put it that way.
Do you think she added anything at really any point? I mean, honestly, again, I say that this movie could be made without her on the cast, and that would be almost no different. It would just be that they were killing people.
To have like a story, I think she's important because she's just kind of this, kidnapped person in danger. And so for most of the runtime of this, it's like, is she going to get eaten? Oh, no. Because she's just like living with these guys, and Farmer Vincent is like, yeah, I want to marry her and stuff. And is she gonna go along with like the cannibalism? Like, will she like flip? Like, she should flip out, but after a point, you almost wonder is like, could she? She's so like suggestible. Could she maybe be talked into it? And
she does it right away, dude. I mean, like, I would argue that she isn't even kidnapped. She's just sort of taken home by the dude that caused their accident and then told, like, your boyfriend died, we buried him.
Like,
which
I
she
remember,
does question, at first. She's like, what the fuck? How is that, like, legal? That's her only smart moment in the whole movie, is that she's
and
like...
her objections are kind of soft, too. It's like, but people, I mean, human flesh. And he's like...
Yeah, and then immediately she's like, I guess I just live here with these guys now.
Like,
and I'm part of their... Yeah, and it's kind of like, I don't know, man. They could have given her a little bit more of something to go with. They could have even made her the hero of the movie, but they don't. They make the hero of the movie rapey sheriff's deputy that basically ate a dog and was also part of a lot of fucked up stuff. He just wasn't part of the main cannibalism scheme,
Yeah, like, so, Bruce the deputy is like our hero. He's almost like the antagonist, I think, because, like, well, I don't know. It feels like we follow him more so, like, we're supposed to be, like, on his side, like, on his perspective, even though we spend almost all our time with the killers.
Right. And Bruce is not a good guy. I mean, he, like, tries to full on get rapey with that girl after pulling one of the most genius schemes ever to watch a drive-in movie with binoculars. It's The Monster That Challenged the World, if anyone's curious, is the movie that they're watching in the movie. And it looks fun. I feel like I've seen stuff from that before, but I don't know if I've ever actually watched the movie. And even at that point, like, she's totally brain dead, dude. She just lets the guy basically rape her for a second and then is just instantly on his side again because he's a cop. It's a really weird fucking chain of events with her and Bruce in the movie as well. And then he ends up getting sidestepped for the old dude, and then, basically just getting both barrels and shoved out of the fucking house. I don't know. Bruce is a good character, but he's not a good person, is basically what I'm trying to say. I think the movie would have worked better and had a darker tint to it if Terry was left completely out of it. If Terry was a girl that Bruce brought home to the family and then realized that this shit was going on. I mean, they could have done something more with, if they were going to have him basically be the main character of the movie anyways, it could have been written in a smarter way, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
I see what you're saying. I think I agree with that. Because I should have revisited.
You got a good point there, country. If the accident didn't look like the weakest accident in history, I mean, that's probably the biggest flaw of the movie is the stunts during that motorcycle crash. It looks like ass, like they just bumped into a tree and then both rolled off the motorcycle. It's pretty bad. The Monster That Challenged the World was a pretty cool 50s monster movie involving giant prehistoric sea snails. I am fucking sold on every syllable of that sentence. Yeah. You too? It's not just me, Dustin.
That sounds great. Like, I've heard it mentioned before.
It's fucking awesome.
Not like, great schlocky 50s sci-fi, and that tracks. So I'm guessing at least I would bet you've seen it, Forrest, right? Like, what do you think?
Which one?
The Monster That Challenged the World.
I actually have not seen that.
Oh, really?
You haven't seen it in theater like 2 times this week because we're discussing something that vaguely involves it? That's usually Forrest's gimmick. I know Dustin knows what I'm talking about. Like, usually every time we talk about
get around, like this, you see lots of stuff.
Yeah, he's like, I just saw it on the big screen like last week.
It's like, my theater happened to be playing, I don't know, like Alien on the big screen.
It's because he lives in New York where they actually give a shit about movies.
Where they do stuff, where things happen because it's a real city.
We have one horror convention a year, and I think they screen like maybe 6 movies at it,
We get one in Chicago, but that's like an undoable, like, hour-some drive.
So the first point in the film where we really know that something is amiss is where Bob kind of finds, which Bob was like this, what do you call him? Like a veterinarian inspector for the county that's coming out to look at Vincent's like herd of pigs and shit. But he kind of notices like a weird structure in the background, so he decides to go check out the secret garden, and that's where he's confronted with, you know, the contents of the secret garden, which, spoiler alert, it's dudes under burlap sacks, or like people, you know. I'm not going to assume the gender of these motherfuckers, but you know, basically Bob goes out there and he finds them, and Vincent also finds Bob, and Bob ends up in the fucking garden, which you guys will see in further scenes. What do you guys think of this whole reveal? I mean, like, okay, again, you know, I was going off the VHS cover art, which is like Vincent and Ida together, and then on the back it's just Vincent in the pig mask with the chainsaw. So you don't know that there's going to be like people planted in the ground, turned into human fucking veal for this guy's like pepperoni sticks. And at this point, I believe we've already seen the scene where, you know, Vincent is selling the pepperoni sticks to the people that were just at the hotel or whatever. I especially love that part where the creepy little Shining twins are like in the meat barn, and they end up getting scared by Ida with the same pig mask that comes into play in the finale. But then, you know, I love that Vincent's solution to it is to scare the fucking shit out of those kids even worse in the car. He's like, you know, just fucking traumatizes them for life.
One of the first times I saw this, like I showed it to my friend Andrew, and he had some pretty fun moments, like reactions during this movie. And the first one was at that scene where Vincent's like, "Here, I'm great with kids. Let me fix this."
Yeah, you don't expect
it. Like scared, like still, and he was like, "God
still,
damn."
Honestly, even having seen the movie a million times, it still almost gets me every time. You know, it's a solid jump scare, especially for somebody that has not seen the movie.
Somebody who's so like passive and wholesome. It's like that scene where like Jack goes like at like Lock, Shock, and Barrel, and they're just like. So use that example from another movie.
I mean, what are your guys', you know, again, we don't really have definitive proof that Vincent is fucked up until you see that he has this secret garden, and then Bob kind of is the first indication that there's something weird about him, because Bob's, it's established that he's been coming there for a while and inspecting the livestock. But for whatever reason, he's like curious about what Vincent is doing in that barn, and goes and tries to look and gets knocked on his ass. And then he comes back later in the night and reveals that hidden garden, you know, with people planted with some type of weird neck wound. I mean, you know, what was your guys' reaction to that as like first time watching this shit? Yeah.
Well, for me, I had actually had that spoiled by the Roger Ebert review. Like that was really the main reason I wanted to see the movie. So at that scene, I wasn't like, oh my God, holy shit. I was like, here it comes, you know, and it was pretty cool. There's a difference between like having something described to you and then seeing it yourself. And that did not disappoint. And right away, I understood what Ebert was talking about in that review too, where he was like, oh yeah, they are kind of like that, you know. And he, like, it's even more fucked up when you know more about it though after hearing about it.
Right.
Like he removes their throats so they can't like talk or cry for help. They can just like grunt and oink.
Oh, we're getting there. That's literally the next sequence that you're kind of presented with. I mean, the movie goes about some normal fun movie motions, but eventually, you know, you're presented with these sequences, then maintaining the garden throughout it. And to be fair to this movie, even though it's an hour and like 40 minutes long, it's only 20 minutes into the movie that you know this shit is going on. Like I clocked it. It's 22 something, like 22 and some change that this stuff happens. So you basically know that they're planting people in these gardens, putting burlap sacks over their head, playing like orchestral music to them, or not orchestral, like Catholic hymn music to them to basically make them more content. And then they feed them through snorkels and a funnel, as you'll see here soon, nutrients to keep them alive. And then all this is to tenderize their meat. Like, there's a couple of points in the movie where Rory Calhoun pinches one of their cheeks and says that they're not ready yet. This is all to basically make them human feel, is what's going on in this movie. What do you guys think about this whole concept of Motel?
It's quite fucked. Let's put it that way. Like, it's great though, because it's something that we haven't really seen before or since, and it's kind of brilliant in a way, because it's like Chainsaw Massacre, what they were doing, except you see more of it. And I almost wonder if Vincent and Cook would get along, or feel like they had to be rivals.
I think there'd be some sort of friction because of the humane approach to all of it that Vincent has. It'd be like if you put like a humane modern farmer in the room with some old school farmer that just doesn't give a shit. He's like taking what he can get from the stock.
It's like, why are you wasting your time? I can see that.
Yeah, because they go through some painstaking efforts in this movie, when you think about it, to make these people have like a humane death, as humane as it can be in the circumstances.
Context
they're anesthetizing them or whatever during any of the painful shit. They go through the whole process, as you guys will see in a little bit, of them basically hypnotizing them with strobe lights and shit like that to make it less of a bummer when they get eventually killed. They don't do anything cruel in this movie. Okay, that's not accurate. They do a ton of cruel.
Removal is pretty cruel. The whole thing is pretty cruel.
They do a ton of cruel shit in this movie, but they're not cruel while doing it. If that makes sense.
That's a better way to put it, yeah.
And that's an awesome gimmick for a fucking horror film, I mean, even Ida, I don't dislike her to the point where I want to see her getting torn apart by a, fucking swarm of
eaten by zombies.
They really are the Cabbage Patch zombies, pretty much. Like, I didn't need to see her getting torn apart. We didn't get that in the movie, and that's good. It adds a little bit of mystery to it. I mean, if anybody should come back from this, it would be Ida with a new Rory Calhoun, because Rory Calhoun's old as fuck. That guy's probably going to die by the time they do a sequel to this, even back in the day.
Yeah, I was going to say, right? He's been dead for like 10 years, I think.
So, I mean, with what you've seen at this point, again, apologies for the somewhat shabby videos quality of that stuff. Extenuating circumstances. Next time it'll be better. What do you guys, what were your thoughts at this point of watching the movie? Like, holy shit, they're like burying people and obviously turning them into this meat that they're making.
Mm-hmm.
It was, for me, it was like where are we going? What could happen now kind of thing, because this movie was kind of hard to predict for about that middle stretch, and there was some of it that was a little too slow for my liking, like the whole
what can happen now, as an answer to your question, is a random picnic scene where they all hang out at a fucking picnic, which probably also contributes to what you're talking about right now, where there's random scenes where it feels like the movie's just drawn out for like 10 minutes in a way that doesn't need to be.
It's the only thing I don't like about it is that there's a pretty slow stretch like in between, and I get that it's kind of to set up like the finale, like the fight between Vincent and Bruce over the girl.
It does set it up, but it is very out of place. I don't know. What do you think, John? Forrest, do you guys agree? I mean, like that whole picnic rowboat fuckery that goes on in the middle of this movie, again, wouldn't need to exist if Terry was not a character.
No,
but Neil
but
Asperod is fucking hot, and I understand why they put her in the movie. So I'm not complaining, but I'm just stating that she's useless.
To at least be fair to that, I mean, yeah, the voting scene was pretty. I mean, I could take it or leave it, but that picnic scene, I mean, granted, maybe they could have put it somewhere else, but that picnic scene gave probably one of the most iconic lines of the movie: "Meat's meat, and the man's got to eat."
And there's a top.
And I mean, so the picnic scene is a great example of a scene that could have been cut, but it's so endearing that they left it in. You know? Like, if anything, that could have been like a cool cross promotion that they did with the movie, where they did like a beef jerky commercial. You know, meat's meat and a man's got to eat, and then he just punches his sister wife in the gut. You know, that's pretty fucking savage.
The Archer episode with the forearm shiver. I don't know if anybody remembers that from like season 2 or something. It's a long setup, but somebody gets caught like two people get caught talking about something they're not supposed to talk about by somebody, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we were just Pam stole my muffin, and we were arguing because she ate it." And the other person is like, you have to get it back from her. It's like, and they just kind of look at each other like, how? And the other person's like, with a forearm shiver. And the guy just kind of like looks Pam in the eyes before like elbowing her really hard in the gut. Like, because they're just so committed to playing along with like the lie they were telling.
I've not seen that. Yeah. I'd like to.
But it's a really funny show.
One of the most
I didn't know.
Oddly endearing scenes of Motel Hell is the feeding time scene where they go in and they feed the, I don't know what you call these guys. I've struggled through all my titling of this review. Like, what do you call them? Like crop people instead of pod people? They go in here and they feed the fucking people through these like snorkels with a funnel in them, which is just hilarious. Yeah. But at the same time, it does look like they actually care. Like they've lovingly prepared this bowl of porridge to feed these guys, and the way their whole demeanor about it is great. From what I read, I guess like this, Ida and Vincent didn't have to fake the love between each other because for whatever reason, those two actors just got on like peas and carrots like right away. So they immediately were like this dope couple. Farmer Vincent is awesome in this, but he's nothing without Ida, I think, in the whole equation of it. I forget which one of you guys compared him to Ma and Pa Kettle or whatever, like any other old rural couple, but that's what they are, man. I mean, they're the American Gothic or whatever image.
That may have been the idea, like during the initial writing of this.
I feel like there's even a Motel Hell poster where they recreate that. Am I wrong, Jonathan Forrest? Isn't there one where he's like holding a pitchfork and they're standing there?
Yes, there is.
Like,
I'm pretty sure it's an international poster, right?
Probably. I don't understand the finer points of all that stuff, but I know that there is alternate posters made for whatever reason, and I get it. It's cool for me because I get to look at different posters from movies that I like. I mean, after that, we pretty much got call girls and cows. That's our next sequence. once they've revealed that Farmer Vincent is a fucking freak that's like going around kidnapping these people and planting them in his fucking lawn, you know, it picks up with increasing intensity. These girls are basically prostitutes that apparently one of them caught the clap after boning this guy for ski lessons, which is it's a bummer. Because skiing isn't that cool. And, you know, to catch chlamydia for doing it is pretty lame. But they look like they're having a good time. They have a pistol in their possession, and they are encountered with some clearly fake cows that the one girl, for some reason, thinks is real. And, you know, it goes about how you would expect that. I think Dustin was confusing this scene with the scene with Ivan and the Terribles, which unfortunately I could not get because my physical copy of Motel Hell is in my brother's movies and I couldn't get to it. So I had to use movie clips, as you guys can see by the lame fucking bookmark. The watermark. But basically, these girls are fucked anyways. But I think, you know, Dustin was confusing this scene with the gas mask and the chloroform to the scene where he sprays the chloroform into the band's bus. And, like, knocks all of them out at once.
Okay. I think
we're going to watch with the swingers party, you'll understand, where it's like, oh, it's different. Like, they use the gas masks and shit. But still just a riveting scene, you know, and what you don't get in our coverage of this is that this actually results in like a dope car chase that goes on for like a solid 5 minutes, you know, and while like the brother Bruce is trying to catch up to them and figure out what's going on. And then ingeniously Rory Calhoun ends the car chase for no apparent reason other than the girl fell over at the wheel right by this lake that he's able to push her car into and submerge it. So, thus continuing his murder spree. It's pretty good stuff. Any thoughts on this, John, Forrest, Dustin?
Well, when they do like capture victims in this, they always make it into like a spectacle. Like it's not just they nabbed this person. Like there's always kind of a bunch of stuff around it, you know.
Right, and at one point, Rory Calhoun even addresses that in character, where he's like, I'm sure you guys remember this, where he's like, you know, the tricks are just as important to me as like doing any of this because it allows me to be like creative when I'm doing this, you know. So basically that's them really like cementing the idea that they've been doing this for a long time and it's a lot of fun to them, you know. Anything else on those guys? Forrest, Dustin? John?
Not really.
Yeah.
They're just hookers that were trying to get some ski lessons and they ended up embroiled in this whole thing. After that, really where we get the true highlight of the movie, which is the swingers. Yep. They show up at the hotel because of I'm guessing I delayed because, you know, Vincent was like totally confused by it at first, and then he's like, all right, you know, this is a thing we do also, is we invite swingers here. The swingers party section of Motel Hell is probably one of the most uncomfortable but also fun sections of it. I don't know, would you guys agree?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love how she's like, don't go ahead, Dustin.
I mean, it could be really like messed up if you. It's really messed up if you actually think about it, because like these people are just kind of like, you know, here for a good time, and like they think they're totally safe while they're being like bound and gagged, and it's like, yeah, we're going to actually kill you really horribly, and it never like really occurs to them that they're in danger.
And then just the way Ida and Vincent show up like that is bone chilling, man. Because these guys are all hopped up on like sex, adrenaline, and probably drugs. I mean, it was the 80s. Look at that Sonny Bono guy down there getting squirted with lube. That's amazing. They were definitely doing cocaine in the very least. They thought that they were in for a night of sexual hijinks, but then they end up being turned into human jerky, and I love it. I think this might be one of the most disturbing scenes of the movie, just because how they're able to like convince them to cooperate so easily. And we already at this point know what's going to happen to them.
Yeah,
that they're going to drugged, knocked